Hello, I'm Lisa Donohue, your host of Heart of the Matter, A Soulful Cure. The focus of this program is holistic health, creating the most optimal state of health for each and every one of us, mind, body, and spirit. And today, in getting yet to another Heart of the Matter, my guest again is Deirdre Miller, and this is actually the part 2 of experience as teacher, enduring the loss of a child, being your daughter Samantha.
Yes.
Now, I'm not sure if these shows are going to run concurrently or one after another, but for those of you that might have caught the first one, and I'm sure you can find it at the Pt2 website on video on demand, Deirdre shared the story about the loss of her daughter Samantha through suicide. And we're picking up from there, and this portion of the show is about survivorship, and it's about picking up the pieces and moving forward. Deirdre's been very brave and courageous in sharing her story, which we hope would, even if it helped one person, was the reason that we were sitting here today on my 57th birthday, November 19th. It just rolls off the tongue. I love my birthday. I'm sorry, November's a great month. Deirdre's a Scorpio too, so Scorpios rule, sorry. Anyways, so picking up where we left off, what are the challenges of surviving loss by a suicide? Just kind of rewinding a little bit, because that's where we had left off. Because when you think about it, a mother's job never ends, nor a father's or a caregiver's or a custodian of children. What are the challenges of surviving?
The challenges are learning to live again. Because you go into it thinking that you have no purpose and you don't know how you're going to even wake up the following day. I've always taught my daughters that wake up every day with faith and hope, and that's what you need to get through your day. But when you lose a child, you tend to lose your own faith and your own hope. And you have to remind yourself that you have those things. So it's where her life had ended, I couldn't allow myself to think that my life had to end with it. But it did feel that way, but I also knew that I had a family that needed me. And as a mother, we tend to be one of the strongest people in the family. I feel that we tend to keep it together. We're the calm ones. We're the ones that get them off to school. And yeah, fathers too, but mothers, we tend to take on those responsibilities.
Super schedulers,
yes.
Taking care of the big picture.
Yes. So learning to live again is one of the hardest things to ever, to do. But with time, you can learn to live again. It's not going to be easy. Like I said, for 8 months, I kept myself just to myself in my home. I didn't want to answer my phone. I didn't want to answer text messages. I didn't want anybody coming to my home. I wanted to be alone in my own little shell. I felt that I was letting my daughter down if I smiled, if I laughed, or anything like that. But it took me a while to realize that that's not what she wanted. And one of the hardest things too is somebody telling you, oh, she wouldn't want that. Or she's in a better place. These are things that you don't want to hear as a mother who is just, I actually had somebody at her funeral walk up to me and say, she's not in heaven. What do you mean she's not in heaven? Well, God doesn't take anybody who takes their own life.
Ooh.
And that was one of the hardest things that I had to hear. And I understand that at that moment, no words were the right words.
It's often the case. A lot of times when I'm in those situations, I think to myself and just ask the person, or say, I'm sorry for your loss, what would be most helpful now? Because I think people in their best attempts are trying to help, but sometimes they actually can be appeasing themselves and actually be helping themselves more, quote or comment dependent, than helping the person who's going through it. Which this is a perfect lead-in to the piece that I had here as a question. Do you ever feel like you had to defend your daughter, who she was, or her honor after the suicide? How about now? How about who you were or your family? Did you ever feel that?
Yes. As I mentioned at the funeral, and
Yeah.
that's the first time that anybody ever walked up to me and said something like that. And I thought to myself, how can you say that to me? I'm just now burying my daughter, and you're going to say something like that to me? I've had somebody say, oh, she's a coward. She just couldn't face her day. You don't know what she was going through.
No,
I
you
don't
don't.
know what she was going through at that moment because she was so good at keeping it from me. I have had people say that she was wrong. Was she wrong? Maybe.
It's such a private
But-
decision. You know, there's
but I
more
thought-
unseen than seen, really.
Who are these people to say that to me? And I had to learn to walk away from those type of statements.
Wow, that is certainly powerful. I had asked you this question in part one, that if, what would you like anyone who has ever considered taking their life to know or to firmly realize regarding those that are left behind who have to pick up the pieces? And also, what would you like to say to those parents or others who are processing such a loss? So we have like contemplation and parents processing.
Every situation is different. I can't say that their situation is going to be the same as mine. I can't say that they're going to be able to process it as I did, but I also can say that don't let it eat you alive. Don't let it consume you, because that's what I did. I allowed it to consume me, and I wanted to be detective, and I wanted to figure out what I can do. But also I had to realize that there's no way of bringing her back. But as a mother, I wish I could have. But you have to learn to live again. You do. You have to realize that, yes, at that moment was out of your control, but now you have to take that control back.
You had mentioned about growing another backbone or not sweating the small stuff, you know, that sort of thing.
Prior to her passing, if somebody had cut me off on the road, I'd be angry and I'd be blowing the horn, or I'd be screaming, or but now if somebody, you know, jumps out in front of me, I'm like, oh, okay, you know, that it happens, and there was no accident, so we're all good. I get angry when I see people screaming for silly reasons, things that really it's not that worth getting upset about. It really truly isn't, because as I always now remind myself, tomorrow is never promised.
No, that's why they call it a gift, you know, that's why they call it the present. Well, one thing that I thought a lot about, with as many things when I was going to do this interview with you, how does this impact the family or the marriage? It almost feels like forced growth. You didn't have a choice in this matter, and there it is at your doorstep, with, you know, a life that's changed forever.
I feel that it affected my youngest daughter. I have two daughters, Samantha, who had, you know, has committed suicide, and I have Madison, who is now currently 21. I feel that it affected her because she lost the mom that she knew prior to that day. She didn't think that I was ever going to come back, but I did, just not the way I was prior. Now I'm more reserved with her, and I almost want to say a little harder on her, because I feel as if I need to protect her more. But I also have to understand I have to let her go too. I can't keep control of her. I have to allow her to grow up too. And that was a hard part about this, is by losing one daughter, I wasn't giving Madison that freedom that she needed to go forward. I didn't allow her to do a lot of things because I was afraid to allow her to be away from me. They say that suicide, losing a child, even losing a child in general can destroy a marriage. Whereas my husband and I, we feel that it made us stronger. We had something that we had to, I don't want to say, I don't want to
Reinforce,
say,
put
yeah,
back together, endure.
exactly.
It was worthwhile.
Yes, because nobody could understand what we were going through. It was our fight, it was our journey, and it's what got us to Vermont, because he would come home from work and find me sitting on the couch, just staring at the wall. He wanted to help, he didn't know how. I knew I needed the help, but I didn't know how. So I found a bereavement group, and I have made many wonderful friends in that bereavement group till this day, that anybody who suffers a loss, please find a bereavement group. You have common grounds there. It's important to be able to speak to people that can relate to what you're going through at that moment, because anybody who hasn't had a loss, they don't know what you're feeling that way, especially a suicidal loss. But I said to my husband, I couldn't stay in our house anymore. I had to go. I had to leave. But my grief therapist told me to not make a major life decision for 2 years, because what I was going through with the loss was enough PTS that if I had made any decisions within 2 years, it could just be backwards in my recovery. So 2 years later, I looked at my husband, I said, it's time to go. And he said, are you sure? You know what that means? It means we're going to start over. I said, I just don't feel I can stay in this house any longer. I loved my home. I loved my house, put it that way. I loved my house, but it didn't feel like a home. It didn't feel complete without the 4 of us, my husband, my 2 daughters, and me. And I said, I don't want to be angry anymore, because I was still angry. I was at that stage of
certainly.
anger. I said, let's go. And he said, where do you want to go? I said, we've always said we're going to go to Vermont. Most people think that's funny, because living in New Jersey, you think you're going to retire in North Carolina. But I said, no, we're going to retire in Vermont. Let's go to Vermont. And that's what brought us to Vermont. And that's why we're here today. To start new, to start over, to start to live again. And I feel that since moving to Vermont, that's what we have done. We've learned to live again.
That's fantastic. You know, it's probably amazing to watch other children and parents and their milestones. And I'm sure it's a very reflective time for you. And also wanting to maybe incorporate thoughts to people that might want to be more grateful for what they have.
One thing I can say, though, about losing a child to suicide is watching her friends, watching them get married, watching them have children. And I get jealous. I get jealous of their parents being able to say, I have a grandchild, or my daughter got married, my son got married. But I also feel happiness too for them too, because I know that if Samantha were here, she'd be happy that her friend got married, that her friend had a baby, that type thing. So I think
that's the wise and devoted person to be in this lifetime, to be happy for other people, despite our circumstances, because there's always an alternate gift in things, for sure. If you're just joining us, I'm Lisa Donohue, your host of Heart of the Matter, and I'm talking to Deirdre Miller in our Part 2, Experience as Teacher, the Loss of a Child. So as we're looking forward, do you ever feel more leery now, or skeptical, or some other word, and not as free and easy because of what you've been through? Have you gained in that since, now that the 5 years has moved forward?
I think that 5 years ago, I wasn't as carefree. I was very hesitant about doing things. I think that over the 5 years, I've learned to enjoy things more. And it wasn't easy. I'll admit it hasn't been an easy journey for the past 5 years. But sometimes when people talk, I tend to listen a little more. I listen clearer. And I And yeah, I might listen a little with trying to figure out where they're coming from. My husband always said I could sit in a room and hear 4 people talk at the same time, you know, and I lost that ability for a while, but I can hear 4 people talk at the same time and hear each conversation. I look around and see what people are doing around me. I'm more observant of what's around me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So what's most helpful to you? What is, or what's been insanely toxic around this issue? You alluded to that earlier. Maybe sometimes when people say, I know just how you feel. No, they don't.
No, they don't.
So what's most helpful, and how have you been able to help others? Or might you like to in the future?
I put my story out there. One of my grief therapists told me that words are powerful.
So that's helpful to you to put your story out there.
Absolutely.
And simultaneously helping others.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
My social media is very clear to who I am. I don't hide anything on social media. I don't hide my feelings. I put it out there because she told me that speaking and talking is in itself my recovery, and she didn't want me to shut down. So even if I woke up one day and jumped on social media and said, hey, I'm having a bad day, today's not a good day, I have how many friends that could say, what's going on? How are you feeling? That engages me in conversation.
And that helps you.
Absolutely.
And it can help others that might be looking.
And that's what it has done. Within the past 5 years, I've had, on 3 separate occasions, 3 people reach out to me and say, your story, it really connected with me. And I realized that I don't want to do that to my mom. I don't want to leave her behind and see her go through what you've been going through. And I've had another person say to me, just the fact that you're able to talk about this allows me to see how I need to talk about this, how I need to be able to let somebody know I need help. So if I can do that just for 3 people in 5 years, my goal is to do it for more people and to help them, because I want them to know that if you're contemplating suicide, it's not. It's not even, it shouldn't be in your thought. Get the help you need. Get really, truly, honestly, find the help you need, because help is out there everywhere. Mm-hmm. And you may not know it, you may not feel it at that time, but it's there. And I wish that my daughter had known it at that time. And if you're a parent who's struggling the loss of a child, be it by suicide, be it by any other means. And I'm not saying one is better or worse than the other, because no parent should ever experience the loss of a child. As children, we prepare to lose our parents before us, but we don't ever prepare as parents to lose our children before us. That it will get easier, I promise you, and it will. You will find that you will find ways to talk about it, and you will find ways to, as we said, live again. Mm-hmm. And if anything, just take it. I don't know what else to say.
Maybe it's kind of the wow effect, working on wellness.
Yeah.
And digging deep to those muscles of the soul to catapult yourself to the next level. I often think, what would happen if we had celebrations of life while people were still among us? I think about the potential benefits. It's almost after the fact. We show extreme kindness in the beginning of someone's life because a baby is so dependent on us, and we show a lot of kindness as people are at getting elderly and at end stage and then transitioning. But somewhere in the middle, we lose some of that. There's actually a good quote in this book about that. And it just got me thinking, what if we had celebrations of life while people were here? If they had more known meaning in their life, or that they truly mattered. I mean, we're in the season of Christmas and all the other beautiful holidays that go along with it, whether it's Hanukkah or Yule, Kwanzaa, and that, it's a wonderful life. It really took him to go on that journey to really see, like, hey, I'm making an impact here. Mm-hmm. I've often wondered, and this one might be going out on a limb here, but just skyballing, what might your daughter be feeling or thinking now? Do you ever think about that? If she could turn back the hands of time, would anything change? Or does she have more ability, do you think, to be more helpful on the other side? That's a big ask, but I figured why not?
I don't think that if we turned the hands back, that it would change. I think that this was what was going to happen. Mm-hmm. I do that. I think that now.
That gives you.
I wouldn't have thought that then.
It gives you a lot of closure.
It does. I like to think that. I always used to say that I hope she's that voice in her sister's ear saying, "Turn around, don't go there. That's the wrong way. Mm-hmm. Don't do that." Or there used to be a saying when I would get into an argument with one of my girls, the other one would go, "But that's Mom. You know how she is. She'll get over it." So I hope to think that if I'm having an argument with my daughter now, that Samantha is in her ear going, "That's Mom. She'll get over it. You know how she is." So they always had this, that they would always say that back to each other. Even when one was living in New Jersey and the other was in Florida, one would text and say, "Oh, Mom just said this." And of course, the text would be, "That's Mom. You know how she is." Mm-hmm. So I hope, and I like to think that, and I'd like to think that every one of her, when she had left us, when she had passed away, she left behind pets. And knowing as much as she loved pets, and that's the other reason that I feel like, why did she do this? Because she left behind so many pets, which we loaded in our car, and we drove from Florida to New Jersey to live their days with us. And as each one of them passed, which they have, there's one remaining, I used to sit there and hold them and say, "Don't you worry, she's coming for you. She'll be here to get you, and you'll be back with her again."
Oh, so nice lifelines, like little heartstrings, each of those pets. One of the things that I often wondered as well is, as I understand, you went through a massive surgery recently. Mm-hmm. Do you ever see that as a metaphor with what? Could you see a metaphor there with what you went through and Samantha transitioning now 5 years later?
I remember going into the operating room and saying to myself, if anything, while I'm under anesthesia, just come. I would love to just have that connection with her, that state of connection with her. I don't know if I did. I don't remember it.
Yeah.
But not to go into too much personal detail, but with my surgery, I feel that life had been created, and then my surgery happened, and life has, what I used to create life has now ended.
And
so
transitioned.
It's a closure, whereas that part of my life is now, it's over,
Yeah, it's maneuvered.
Mm-hmm.
I see it as a very powerful metaphor for sure. So I always ask people how they achieve wellness and balance in their life, and I would like to close this program with another piece that I would like to read to you as a gift. So I understand that as you're wowing it, working on wellness and starting anew, continuing on your journey here in this life to, create the life you're enjoying and working on here. You just went through a 3-week standard process cleanse, and I think it's going to be up in a couple of days, sliding right under the wire before Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
So that's a huge accomplishment.
Yeah.
How are you feeling? What's it been like? Have you experienced any, emotions or other? We're talking about, moving through quite a process here, even in this interview, and reviewing these questions.
A 3-week cleanse is not an easy thing to do.
And it's a stringent one.
Especially when you are cutting out the things that you really, truly enjoy, like coffee.
Mm-hmm.
That was the hardest thing to ever do. But I feel as if my body is better. I feel like I'm sleeping better, and that's important because sleep is one thing I haven't really much done in a very long time, but I would definitely do it again. Not so soon.
In the spring, maybe, another one.
In the spring. Like
Yeah.
you said, getting it done right before Thanksgiving was my goal.
You did well. I'm impressed. Really, I'm
you.
impressed. You know, one thing that I wanted to mention also from this book by Mark Nepo, More Together Than Alone, there is this beautiful piece here, especially when we're thinking about Thanksgiving and the Native American brothers and sisters, both here in Canada and elsewhere, the Native people. The Native American notion, all my relation, views all reality as life, as related and interconnected. Every aspect of life is seen as part of one intrinsic family. So when you were talking about how people might address you or comments made, we really are one big part of one big family. And everything's interconnected. You know, Genesis, the band, talked about that, you know, and or maybe it was Earth, Wind, and Fire. I am everything, and everything is you. Genesis, of course, that's like one of my favorite bands, so I transposed the name there. I think it's really important for people to, especially in these times, just to dig deep and be more methodical in their wording, in their language, how we address one another, because we all really are so interconnected.
I always say be mindful of the person next to you because you never know what they're going through.
You're right.
And I always have said a smile can go a long way. A hello can go a long way. Hold a door open for somebody, say please and thank you, just because you never know what people are going through at
You
that
have no
moment.
idea. I always think about that as my little oranges or whatever are bumbling down the grocery belt. What's going on with the person behind me or in front of me? I have no idea what they've just endured that day or experienced. So it really, really is true just to keep sending out the positive vibes and doing all that we can. Be kind, for everyone you meet is finding their battle too. Or fighting probably and finding their battle too. That was in a fortune cookie that I read. And one of the other ones that I had here, nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care, and Teddy Roosevelt said that, and that is super true. I wanted to offer you, Deirdre, this piece that is from one of my very favorite Celtic mystics. May I do that? Mm-hmm. The late, great John O'Donohue, who left this earth plane all too soon. It's called For a New Beginning, so this is my little Christmas present preamble to you. In out-of-the-way places of the heart, where your thoughts never think to wander, this beginning has been quietly forming, waiting until you were ready to emerge. For a long time, it has watched your desire, feeling the emptiness growing inside you, noticing how you willed yourself on, still unable to leave what you had outgrown. It watched you play with the seduction of safety and the great promises that sameness whispered, heard the waves of turmoil rise and relent, wondered, would you always live like this? Couple paragraphs left. Then the delight when your courage kindled and out you stepped onto new ground, your eyes young again with energy and dream, a path of plenitude opening before you. Though your destination is not yet clear, you can trust the promise of this opening. Unfurl yourself into the grace of beginning that is at one with your life's desire. Last one. Awaken your spirit to adventure, hold nothing back. Learn to find ease and risk. Soon you'll be home in a new rhythm, for your soul senses the world that awaits you. I know that was lengthy, but it is a beautiful piece, and it's from the book To Bless the Space Between Us that my friend Claire shared with me years and years ago, and again, it was by John O'Donohue, For a New Beginning. Just in wrapping this up, just a quick little nugget, is there anything else you would like to offer to our viewers? Just to hang in there?
Hang in. Just be strong.
Yeah, be strong.
Be strong and
hang in.
Absolutely.
Oh, thank you, Deirdre.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. It's been a huge gift. Well, I hope to be back in another 6 months with another Heart of the Matter program. Until then, always do your best and honor your word, because really that is the only thing we own. Keep making your corner of the world bright, because we all certainly need it. Thank you.